I'm good to go when you are.
We ready?
Yep.
Going live.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the shop. This is going to be a fun one. If you are new to the lives, we do these every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. And most of the time we're talking about some specific topic, or we'll bring on a guest, or we'll bring someone else in to teach something live. And just it's kind of a fun time to get to know a lot of individual people. My wife down there takes care of all of the questions and keeps the chat in line. And
they're easy. It's you keeping in line. That's hard.
They talk about me behind my back, and yeah, that's the way it goes. But tonight's going to be a little bit different. Oh, also, if you are watching this recorded, down below in the description is going to be a list of all of the questions that were asked, as well as timestamps that will get you roughly into the video. So if you want to read through the questions and see if there's something specific you want to jump to, you can do that. If you're watching this live, then go ahead and throw your questions in the chat, and Sarah will collate them and bring them up as we can. So this one, I really want to show, it's been one of these things I've been wanting to demonstrate the difference between planing, sanding, and scraping, and what that does for different finish applications. Because there's a little bit of confusion to that, because they aren't one for one doing the exact same thing. And the best way to do that is actually to show with a microscope. So I have a microscope set up in here, and I'm going to go through sanding, scraping, and planing on two different boards here and show a couple different methods and what is the difference between them. And then after that, we'll kind of go into, let's play with the microscope. So let me actually show you what I've got here. This is actually a new thing that I've added, and I'm going to be a little bit bouncy here as I move the camera around. So this is a microscope. I know it doesn't quite look like a microscope, but it's hooked up to my my camera. So we have a microscope objective on here. So that's the same head that would normally be on a microscope, and then it goes up into a 200 millimeter lens, and then that is then connected to my Panasonic GH4. And so that is actually allows me to do what you would normally expect to see in a microscope, but with that. So I'm going to have this here so you can see what I'm doing, as well as what's going on here. And so this is going to be a little bit different from normal. I'm not going to have a normal wide angle. So when I'm talking, actually I'm going to raise it up just a little bit more so we can do this. Oop, let me actually see what I'm doing. Let's go up to there. So that way hopefully you can see a little bit of other things that are happening here. Now with this, what we have here, let me show you, this is a ruler. Duh. And it's got 1/8 inch and 1/16 inch and 32/32 inch and a 1/64 of an inch. So I'm going to actually look at the 1/64 of an inch marks on this. So if I switch this over to the microscope, and I slide this down underneath, you can see it's slightly out of focus. There we go. Each of those lines are a 1/64 of an inch across. In other words, this whole screen that you're seeing is about 1/16 of an inch from side to side. So the whole image there is 1/16 of an inch wide, which is really, really small. For those of you in metric, it's about 1.6 millimeters wide. So in magnification, this is about 100 times magnification. It's pretty decent. I have another objective I can put on there that gets it even better. But for what we want to look at tonight, this is the optimal range. If it gets too small, then you're not actually going to see fluid flowing into things, and if it's too big, well, then you just might as well have a human eye to look at it. Yeah, any particular things, any questions I need to do before we jump in?
Questions, no. Requests for what they'd like to see done, yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to probably do to a bunch of things, because I'm sure a lot of people want to see like the edge of a blade or sandpaper or a card scraper or things like that. So we're going to go through actually seeing the difference between planing, sanding, and scraping first. And then when we're done with that, we'll look at a few other things. So if you have things for those, Sarah will put those in a list, and we might get to a few of them. But it does take a little while to set this up in between, so if there's something that's really weird, we may not have the time to actually get this set up to show that. Yeah, okay, so first, let's actually take a look at this. We have, here is white oak, because this is wood by Wright, so of course we're going to start with something that's out of focus. Here we go. And it just takes a while to dial it in. I'll switch it back over to 3 here. So we've got oak, and this is a planed surface. So you can see these grooves running side to side. Those are actually marks from the iron. So the iron has micro scratches in it, and it makes micro scratches in the wood. So to slide this down, you can see annular growth rings. So here, this is one of the open, what you call an open pore. That's the spring flow where you have bigger pores. And then you have the winter flow where there are smaller pores. And so this is a ring porous wood. Let me see if I can find one with, yeah, here we go. Here is a really good spring flow where you can actually see where the cells and the sap are. And so this is actually dried sap inside of the oak, which you don't normally think about in a hardwood. But yes, sap, it's kind of cool. But the difference is, in this particular case, what you're looking at here right now is a planed surface. So there is no dust that has been in there. There's nothing in it, everything has been sheared off. I'm using a freshly sharpened plane. And that's what a planed surface looks like. So now I'm going to put this in here and do a bit of scraping. Do we have a super chat?
It is. Paul Allen says, for the schmoo fun.
The schmoo fun? Does he have a mom joke?
Yes. James told me I should embrace my mistakes, so I gave him a hug.
I love you, babe. So,
you know I love you.
Let's do some card scraping here. Oop, let's not do that side. Let's get a side. That one's good and sharp. And I'm going to do a little area down here. Now, a card scraper makes a little bit more dust than a plane. It does make a lot of curls, but even a really nice one makes a little bit of dust. So I want to see, does that actually make it look any different? So we're going to bring it back over here and see if I can get this into focus. Let's find some of those annular rings. So you can see a little bit more dust in there, but mostly it's just those bubbles of sap. Here we go, there. You can see the bubbles of the sap in there. It's kind of interesting. But let me try and find a smooth section here. Get into focus. There we go. So that's what the scraping looks like. You don't get quite as much of the lines you get with the plane because it basically tears off the top surface. So you get a very different surface texture from the scraping than you do from the planing. You don't get those lines running with the grain as much. That's one of the reasons why you can go across the grain, because you get that more roughed surface, which is kind of an interesting thing to play with, because even with a brand new sharpened iron that is incredibly sharp, when you're looking at it on a microscopic level, there are tiny little lines because there had to be some aggregate to cut it. Yes, you can get a finer and finer and finer plate and get less and less of that aggregate, but you're always going to get some lines for it. Now, let's actually take a look at sanding it. So I'm going to do that exact same spot, and I'm going to sand one area because I want to have one area that I'm going to put oil into and one area where I'm not. And so we're going to sand. I'm just going to use a little bit of 400 grit. Nothing much, but before I clean it off, so we can see the raw dust left on there. And oops, flip back over to this. Here you can see there is a lot of dust on the top of this. I haven't cleaned any of it off, so let's actually do that. Got a bit of tack cloth, and let's clean some of that off. Now, looking at it visually, if you get right down to it, you can see there are light spots where the dust has filled into the pores. So I want to actually see that now that it's been wiped off. And I mean, you can see that, but it's physically smooth to the touch. And the sanding always will feel smoother than planing because it's filling in those pores. You're getting a more level surface. With a plane and a ring porous wood like this, you're always going to feel the grain because there's more of it to fill. And so let's bring this over into you, and then let's take a look at something that is out of focus and in focus. And my focus distance is less than a human hair. So let's try and find a good spot here.
Which
yes.
human hair are we?
Okay, so here I've cleaned it out, but you can still see a lot of dust stuffed down in those pores. And now you can also see scratch marks going lengthwise. Those are 400 grit scratch marks. And if you compare them to the earlier scratch marks, they're a considerable amount larger than the plain scratch marks, because the plain was last done like a 1200 grit and then a strop. But yeah, there's a lot of dust in those pores. So what happens is, now that's oak. I want to bring it over here to a pine. A pine is a diffuse porous wood. Now I could bring maple or a lot of other ones, and I want to show basically the difference between ring porous and diffuse porous. A lot of people are going to say open pored and closed pored. Those are really poor terms to use because all woods have pores that are open. That's what pores are. They're open space. And so it's actually more to do with how are they spaced. A wood that is diffuse porous has all the pores evenly spaced throughout, and they're all the same size throughout the board. If something is ring porous, then you have them clustered by their growth time. So in the spring, when the sap is really flowing, those pores are really big. And then in the fall and winter, when they get small, the pores get smaller and smaller and smaller. So they're not all homogeneous throughout. They are split up by their annular rings. Now let me move this up. Oh, I might have to make it a little taller for this one. And you. So let's see if I can focus in on this pine. Any particular questions? There we go.
Are you going to test different diffuse porous woods like pine or maple? I'm half.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, I'm half paying attention, half trying to keep on the track.
Now, one of the things you're going to notice here is that this surface is planed. And so you can see those scratch marks running through there, but they're pretty consistent. And you're also going to notice that there are no deep cavities in this because all of those pores are the same size, whether you're in a spring flow like this, or that stripe right there is a spring flow, and then this is a fall and winter flow. And all of these pores are exactly the same. Now, when you get into diffuse porous woods, that becomes a little bit odd because you can't see where the wood has more pores that are open and not. And so what happens is when you get an oil finish, you put it on there, the oil will soak into places where there are more open pores, and places where they're not, it sits on top. And so if the grain is wavy at all or has any amount of vertical movement, you're going to get areas where more oil soaks in and areas where less oil soaks in. And that's where you start to get blotchiness, particularly on your maples and your ash, your aspen and your pines. If you put an oil finish on it, you get these dark areas and light areas, and it's really, really blotchy. Now, you kind of want that if you're working something like an oak that you want to get the rays showing out from quartersawn oak. You want that blotchiness because that is what differentiates between the rays and the other areas. Rays aren't going to soak in as much as regular open pores are going to soak in a lot. And so you want that blotchiness in an oak. But in a maple and a pine, things like that, you don't want that blotchiness. Then the other question is, which one of these surfaces then soaks in more oil? And you would naturally think that a planed surface should soak up more oil because it's not clogging those holes. You saw all the holes, particularly in the oak, get full of sawdust. And the idea is that that would then clog it up. So let me actually do the scraping on this. And this is going to be really hard to do because it's pine. Softer woods are always more difficult to scrape. Yeah, and this one's not going to behave. Come on, give me a good scrape. There we go. There we go. Now I'm getting a good scrape. So let me show you what the scraping looks like on it. Now on this one, you're going to see a lot of mess on here. And we'll have to get it in focus. Oh, let me actually turn it on. Okay, yeah. Here you can see how the surface is almost torn up here. Because it has this really, really soft surface, it gets just shredded by that card scraper. And the card scraper has to be incredibly sharp to work on pine. Now maple will do a little bit better. Here where I'm getting into the spring growth ring, it's a little bit better, but you can still see there's a lot of surface tearing from the card scraper. And my card scraper isn't absolutely the sharpest. I didn't sharpen it before this. But you're always going to get a little rougher surface with a card scraper on something that's thinner, something that's softer. Is that another mom joke?
Evan Van Dyke says mom joke about pores because I said this is a little different than like pores on Dr. Pimple Popper or something like.
I could give you a joke about pores, but it would be really
Poor taste.
It would be a poor joke. Poor joke. Yeah, I did poor taste. I like that.
You even did better than your own joke.
Let's do some sandpaper here. And pick a spot here. Let's show it without removing the extra. Bring it into space. Okay.
Evan will have to pour over the evidence later on.
Here's the sanded surface. And so the dust has less places to go because there aren't a lot of those annular growth rings for it to fit into, all those open spaces. But there's still a lot of dust on there. So let's hit with some tacky cloth. And feeling-wise, planed, I can still feel some of the texture. Sanded feels like glass. Everything has been homogeneous, and sanding is just so much smoother. And then the card scraper, in the harder sections of the spring growth, it's really nice and smooth, and the softer sections of the fall, winter growth, it's a lot more rough and coarse there. Yeah. But let's look at this. Okay, here's with the tacky cloth, taking that extra dust off. And that's the sanded surface. Actually, it looks pretty good, but you can still see a lot of dust in the pores. So what happens when I apply a little bit of oil to it? And of course, this is wood by Wright, so boiled linseed oil. And it's kind of hard to do this under the microscope. I was having a trouble making this happen earlier. So if I take a rag that already has a decent amount of oil on it, and I'm going to dip the corner in, and I'm going to try and find a spot here with the sand. Now in the pine, it doesn't show up that much under a microscope. I'm going to pick a spot here, and I'm going to try and make that spot where the oil wicks from one side to the other. So let's turn the camera back on. And let's see if I can actually see this while I do it. I'm just trying to get it to pull over there. You can see how it kind of works along the grain. And in this one, it's not moving quite as much along there as you'll see in the yoke, but you can see it's soaking into each of those veins as it runs along it. It's a little hard to see on the pine, but let me show you in the planed area. So it's come up here where it has been planed. Ooh, this is going to be harder to see. Just let me get the focus on this a little better. No! Getting that focus in the right spot is difficult. So anytime I breathe on the bench, the whole thing shakes. So let's see if we can do this. There. You can see the plane surface on the pine, it just runs down those pores. So with the pine, it really makes a lot of sense that it soaks in because nothing is stopping it. But something very different happens when we go to oak. So let's do that sanded section right there. Now I got to adjust this again. And fiddly dink, any questions while I'm setting this?
Well, we had a super chat.
Oh, what was that?
Noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Warren Munn said, I know I'm a redgum fan, but I'd love to see the magnified effects of the plane versus scraper versus sandpaper on your little block.
Of redgum? Redgum, let me just look at redgum. Redgum is a diffuse porous. Yeah, it's diffuse porous. So it'd be fairly similar, but redgum also has a lot of weird grains in it where when it dries, it splits apart because it's so hard, so you get a lot of lines in there. So you probably have some action that would be a lot more like a ring porous with that. So let's see if we can do this again. This is the sanded area on the oak. And so here I've got one of those spots that are just loaded with dust. See if I can get this to come in here. And you can see how the dust now pulls it down into that vein. And the dust will actually wick it down deeper into that hole. But if we go over to the planed area, and come up here, find a very similar spot. There we go, but out of focus, of course. Ah! breathe on it funny and it goes out.
All right, I have a mom joke while you're doing that.
Okay, what you got?
Okay, what do you call a chicken looking at a bowl of lettuce?
What?
Chicken sees a salad.
I love you, babe. Good. Grab a different one. Let's grab this one here. There we go. Ah, there we go. There's a nice spot right there. So that is a planed surface. There's less dust in there. So let's actually put this on here and go into here. And you can see how this will work along as well, but in the end, it actually doesn't work quite as far. Actually, this one's moving pretty quickly. But you can see how it's kind of dying out there. One of the interesting things is with an open porous, you tend to get these bigger spaces that the oil will sit on there and not actually go into the wood. But if that area is clogged with dust, that dust will actually suck the oil down into it. And it's kind of fascinating to see the difference on some of them as opposed to the diffuse porous woods. The holes on that are so small that they don't need the dust to suck it down into it farther. And you tend to get a lot more blotchiness in this because the areas where there are far more open holes, it's going to suck up more wood, more oil. And so you can kind of get the balance between it. Now, that brings us to which one do you use? If you want to see all of the grain structure on a white oak, quartersawn, usually what I'm going to say is plane it and then hit it with a really fine sanding, like a 300, 400. And that's going to load all the pores with dust and allow it to soak down in deeper, so you're going to get a better contrast between the different areas. However, if you are wanting a diffuse porous like maple or a pine and you don't want the blotchiness, then you may want to sand it because that will stop more of the oil from getting down in farther. So it's kind of one of those, it makes a little bit different for each one. But in the end, if you don't want the blotchiness on a diffuse porous wood like a maple or a pine, use a sanding sealer because then it will stop everything and just make it much, much simpler. Okay, so those are the things I really wanted to show you because I was playing with that today and experimenting with things, and I found it absolutely fascinating. But we've still got a little over a half an hour. So let's do some experimentation and play around. So what do we got, babe?
Okay. What are you going to do? The actual red gum?
Let's see if I can show the red gum. It's so. Well, let me think. Read what's next. Let me see if I can do it.
Okay. We've had several requests, but WoodJRx asked for burr on the edge of a card scraper.
Okay.
So
that one is really, really hard to show. Because you can't look down the burr because the depth of the field is so small. You can't actually see the burr coming out. And if you look at it from this angle, well, there's no depth to it, and so you really can't see it. But let me actually show you that before we move on so I can give you a little idea. Let me find a good spot on there and make sure I can get this thing in focus. Other way. Yeah, let's see if we can show this. Okay, here is, I'm looking straight on the edge of a card scraper here. There's the wood underneath. I'm trying to get right up to the top edge. Hey, look at that. Okay, so there's the burr. Looks a little dirty. Maybe clean it off a little bit. Ran my thumb down it. Up, up, up. And now it's out of focus again, of course. Let's see if I can just do this. There we go. And so you're really not going to be able to see much of any burr on there because you're looking at the face of it. It's almost impossible to get that burr right in the edge. That one's a little bit dull, but that was the edge that I was hitting the pine with. And so you can still see some scratches in it. But yeah, there's the burr. So it's kind of a hard thing to show. I'd love to think about that. There's got to be some way of showing the burr, but that's going to require a whole setup to get the camera on it just right. So I might have to hold off on that. Here, let me pull out the red gum that we had. So for those of you who want to know, red gum, let me show it on this. Red gum is really kind of funky. It is a diffuse porous wood, but you can see all these lines running through it. That's actually areas where the wood has micro cracked as it dried, because it's so hard and tough. It kind of twists over on itself. It's really kind of cool wood. Let me get back to focus here. There we go. So let me see if I can get this one in focus, to see if I can raise it up high enough for it. Nope, I got to get this tripod up a little higher. Probably not a bad thing to do. There we go. Now we can play with getting it down on it. So let's see. There we go. Red gum. And this is the planed surface. So I just hit this with my smoothing plane. Just looks absolutely fascinating up close. That's the block of wood we're just looking at. These lines you're seeing, those are not the cracks. Those are just pores in the wood. That is a crack. That's one of the smaller ones. Let me see if I can get to one of the big ones here.
So next week on the live, do we do the microscope with more of a medical focus?
And it was really hard to get in there. There we go. Yeah, that's one of the cracks. There's the planed surface. That's just kind of cool.
Kind of looks like a papaya.
Oh, here, I'll put some oil on there while we're looking at it, because that's always fun to see. It's fun to see how things wick in there.
Does that make it wicked cool?
First, let's make sure it's in focus. And then let's bring this in here and try to bring it over towards it. It's just fun to watch.
Okay,
Right,
you just need to
there you
create shorts of these.
Yeah, I should do that.
Am I the only one creating brownies?
Watch the oil soak in. And, all right, so what I was doing, here, I'll show you the close-up on this. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at that point, that tip right there. We were looking at the very, very tiny, tiny edge of that tip. It's almost nothing. What we got?
All right, let's see. Paul Allen, can we see the difference between a normal bench plane scratches and a smoothing plane?
You know, what we should do is look at, I'm going to grab an iron out that's a little bit bad.
We should do a planing of James versus Sarah and see.
Let's actually look at the diamond plates up close, because I haven't seen those up close.
That was a question.
Okay, so this is my coarse. We got way down on this one. And it is a bit dirty, so it's going to look kind of funky. Holy cow. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I'm going to turn it back over. Sorry. Okay, this is the coarse diamond plate. And so there's a nickel plating on there that all of these diamonds are embedded in. That's kind of interesting to see the scratches in the nickel plating. Huh. That's cool. All right, so that's the coarse. Ooh. Let's look at the fine. So, see if I can get this one in focus. Nope, I gotta move it down. Other way. There we go, there's the fine. Maybe. There's almost nothing to focus on. There. So they're a lot smaller, but basically the exact same thing. It's interesting to see actually the scratches in the nickel plating in between. So that's probably where diamonds have broken loose and rolled along the surface. Now let's look at the extra fine. So this is about 1200 grit. Let me see if I can actually see this. Yeah, let me clean this off first. About lick the plate to clean it off. That'd been interesting. Here. Let's put that one under there.
Mama always
3.
said you should clean your plate.
Okay, there's the diamond plate. And so you're seeing those big blocks. Those aren't the diamonds. The diamonds are all those tiny, tiny little dots in there. Just, I mean, you really can't even see them with this microscope. You'd have to get a much, much smaller microscope for that. Those are just incredibly fine. So yeah, that's the extra fine. So let's actually see, what does that look like different with irons? Any other questions while I'm doing this? Because it'll take me a second to set this up. Here.
Questions, it's more like...
Everyone just wants to see something interesting?
They have requests. Hang on, let me read through them.
Let's see. Let me grab something easy to sharpen that needs a little work. Let me grab my number 3.
You ready for a question?
What's that?
You ready for a question?
Sure.
Matt V wants to know, can you explain the different types of chips or cuts? I think I read something about a type 1 cut or a type 2 cut depending on the angle of the blade.
Well, you have class 1, class 2, and class 3 cuts, which are a class 3 cut is just grabbing the saw and cutting it. A class 2 cut is using a line and then cutting on the line. And a class 1 cut is using a knife wall that the blade actually falls into a gouge and cuts against the line.
I know what I want to see under the microscope next.
I don't think that's what you're asking. What?
Your head.
I can't hold that still.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's hit this on the extra course. So those really big diamonds we were just looking at a minute ago. Not extra course, this is just the course. Or I should bring over the extra course while it's still set up for that. Yeah, here's the extra course. Oh, I gotta adjust that a little bit more on. Oh wow, those are huge. Okay, here's the extra course plate. There's a reason why the extra course wears out so much faster than the other ones, because the diamonds just break loose and tumble along. You see these scratch marks where it looks like they've just broken loose and moved on farther. Huh, that's kind of interesting. So, let's see. Yeah, it's got good scratch marks on it. Ooh, I'm going to have to figure out how to hold this. Let's see if I can do it this way. Yeah, we can do it that way. Okay, cool. Ugh, I gotta move it a little closer though. That's half the problem with this setup, is just how do you hold something in place to actually look at it. So, okay, wow, that is cool. It did come out. Okay, look, here is the extra coarse scratches right on the tip of the iron. Yeah, and so you're seeing this, there's a burr rolling off there. And I feel an edge on here. So you're seeing that dull rounded edge. That's not actually a dull rounded edge. That's actually the burr. Seeing if I can get it to wiggle. If I push on it at all, the iron goes in and out of focus. That's kind of cool. Okay, let's move on to the fine stone. I have a feeling this microscope is going to work into other videos more often. Here, I'm going to change the scratch pattern to go right in line with the iron, whereas the last one is kind of going at a 30-degree angle. Yeah, all right, so here's the fine. Try and set this in here.
Now you got to do this to your chisel test.
Yeah. Oh, stink, I'm out of movement. Just a second, let me see if I can move this over. Ah! I lost it.
What are the blue lines?
Oop, back this way. Is that what I'm looking at? Sorry, I'm on the wrong camera. Well, you're not gonna see anything here. There. Oop. Right there. Okay. Now let's get it in focus. Okay, this is a perfect shot. Perfect shot. Let me just see if I can move it just a hair. Ah, too far. And out of focus. There. Okay. Don't touch it. Let it bounce. It's slightly off to the side here, but you can see those really big gouges left over from the last plate. And if you look at it right now, all of the scratches right at the edge are going at a 30-degree angle. And then you come back just a little bit, and they're all going straight in line. And that is one of the most common problems you're going to find with a lot of new sharpening, is they don't get right up to the tip. And that last tiny little bit there, you're looking at something that's like, what? That would be like a 1/20th of an inch? And a hair, a thickness of a piece of paper away from the edge. So let's hit it right up to that edge and see how those disappear. That is really kind of cool to see. I was hoping I could get something. I didn't think it would be quite that dramatic. So straight in line. But let's go right up to the edge now. Yeah, that'll do. Now let's see if we can get it back in focus. Ooh, that was close. See if we can do it this way. There we go. Yeah. Okay, now, let's see if I can show you this. Let me get it in focus though. There we go. Now you can see those lines going 90 degrees to the tip, going right out to the tip. But here you're going to see those imperfections on the tip. That's actually the burr. Let's see if I can pull this out. There's actually some junk on there from the rag. There we go, because I wiped it off on the rag. And you're seeing those micro imperfections right up on the edge there. That's the burr. My fingers have tiny bits of steel in them. That's kind of interesting to see. So then, let's move on to the fine. I'm going to do this one at a 30-degree angle as well. See what that looks like. Get rid of the junk from the rag on there. Put that one back in. Oh, just a hair off. This is, I breathe, I kicked it! My tripod got in the way. My wife is over here laughing at me.
Is this different than any other day?
Yeah.
No.
Here, let's see what we got here. So now, see if I can get this in focus. Really, really close. Don't touch it. There we go. So now you can see really, really fine scratches right up to the tip. And if you look right on the tip there, it looks like it's rounded over. That rounded over section there, that's actually the burr. You can see it moving when my finger goes by it. That's the burr. So we want to take that off. So I'm going to bring it back over to the plate. And what I'm going to do is right now the burr is hanging, the bevel is on this side, and the burr is kind of hanging over this way. So I'm going to put it on the plate and try and bend that burr back just a hair. Just one pass. And then I put it on the strop.
We should have made a competition to count how many times you say hair.
When you're talking about this, that's like the smallest definition you can do of a measurement. You know, a hair, that's
Well,
the
if Alan
English
was on,
system's
he'd say I was the
measurement.
smallest, but anyways.
Well, yeah. Okay, a couple strokes here. Flip it back and forth. I want that burr to just fall off. And to my eye on here, the burr is off. Let's see what it actually looks like on a microscope. This should be kind of interesting. I haven't seen this yet, so. Let's see if we can focus on this. That is what you'd call out of focus. And that is out of focus that way. Let's go the other. Ooh, there we go. So there. Ah. I'm moving the crank arm on this, what, thousandth of a degree around. There. That's the edge. So that's a polished all the way to the strop. So when I bring my finger along it, there's no burr flashing on it. Just junk coming off of my finger. So there is a sharpened edge. That's kind of cool.
I think you should compare, you know, how like you test your chisels with your arm to see how the hair comes off, like a patch of hair.
There's no way I could get that in focus. When the depth of field is one hair and I want to cut a bunch of them, yeah. That would be a fun one to show, though. So what's the next thing people want to see?
Okay.
Got about 18 minutes left?
You've shown several of them.
There are a couple whole videos I'm going to be making with this now. I think this is just, I've had this set up for almost a year now. And I bought it for a specific video I'm wanting to make, and I'm still wanting to make it. I just haven't had a chance to do it. And it was just today I was thinking, what should I do for a live? Well, you know, I've never actually looked at something with that. It'd be kind of fun to look. I spent 2 or 3 hours just going like, ooh, let's put this under there. Ooh, let's put this under there.
Are we surprised? I'm telling you, this is just going to be a whole channel of just James playing with the microscope.
Woodworking by Micro.
That's we get it like you and Barbie would shop or something.
I'll make a Barbie doll for Barbie. And do a Barbie's Barbie workshop. Yes. What's next?
Oh, they want you to show a hair for reference.
Well, let's see here.
You don't go for the beard? Come on, man. I want to see the red.
I don't know where that.
I don't know where it went.
There we go.
I could give you a
Let's see if I can get these in focus.
gray one.
Back it up. Other way. All right, let's see what we can find. Let's see if I can actually find it on here. First, let's get this plate in focus. I have it on my extra coarse, so it should stand out against those diamonds. So let's see if I can bring that hair over here. And it should be coming into focus any moment here. I'm moving it just a tiny bit.
Oh, I think in the corner. Is that it? Or is that something else?
That's just a brown fleck of some skin cell or something. A blue fleck of something.
Play guess what's on.
Where's James's hair? Oh, there it is. There it is. That. Let's see. Yeah, that one's my beard hair. I can't see my arm hair on here. I thought it was on here. I may have sneezed. Yeah, that is my hair. Let's see if we can get it in focus. Wow, that is actually really interesting.
You've never looked at a hair under a microscope?
Well, not this hair. I mean, just the,
Well, no, not that one.
the
You just-
translucent color of it is kind of interesting. Huh. Yeah. I do have red hair.
Here, you want one of mine?
Yes. What's next?
So diamond size is smaller than a hair.
Yes.
We can now accurately describe
Yes.
what a hair length is.
And that's a beard hair, so that's one of the thicker ones. Yeah, I've compared my beard hairs regularly. It's a thicker one. It's thicker than my arm hair. Let's put it that way. My arm hair I thought was on there, but I don't see it now. I don't know where it's at. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, it's the shadow of the beard hair.
We digress.
Yeah, what do we got? What's next?
You don't get this on any other channel, I'm going to tell you that. All right, we saw plain blade edge before and after sharpening.
Oh, yeah. For those of you who want perspective, go back to the beginning of the video. I actually put the ruler under it so you could see 1/64 of an inch marks. Yeah, so the whole image that you're seeing is a 1/16 inch wide. So 1.6 millimeters wide.
Let's see. Alex wants to know, do you have any negative rake scrapers or carbide tools? Would love to see those.
That would basically be
What
a
you did.
card scraper. And
Okay.
yeah, you would have to.
I'm just catching up on the questions I
Yeah,
pulled
that'd be
up.
a fun one to try and figure out how to show. You have to play with that one. 'Cause that would be a good one to show a whole series of how it deforms. I would just have to figure out how to do it. That'll be coming up sometime as soon as I figure out how to get that in focus.
All right. Do you have any spalting?
Spalting?
Daniel wants to know if you have spalting.
I think I do have a piece of spalting down here. Or did I just get rid of that piece? Ah, here it is. It's light spalting, but it should. Oh, live oak. Yes, I didn't look at live oak. Oh, we're looking at live oak, guys. I'm sorry, but this is just like yes. So here, let me show you what live oak looks like in the camera. Live oak is just this wild and crazy grain. It just goes all over the place. So we're going to look at this spot right in the middle. We're going to look at a spot right about here.
You're going to do that, and then you're going to put boiled linseed oil on it?
Maybe. That would be a fun one. All right, so let's look at right there. And
Then okay, and then the consensus is, I mean, we have a couple different things with wood people want to see, but they also want to see saws, like the saw tips. But that might have to be a different
there's a
show.
lot of things in the shop to look at. So here we got live oak, which should look a lot like the white oak in its texture and appearance. But the grain, and this surface is, this is a planed surface. There's just a lot of stuff on there. What are those black specks? Those are just black specks. Man, those are tiny. Didn't even know those were there.
Oh, so they want to know, can you hold a metric ruler? Do you have a metric ruler?
Let me see if I have something. I think this one does. Yes. Okay. So here, each one of these marks is a millimeter. Let's see if I can focus this. So each one of these marks is a millimeter apart. Yes. And then I can come down here to the end that has half millimeter marks. So each one of these are out of focus. Oop, not over there yet. There we go. Those are the half millimeter marks. So about 1.6 wide. And to give you a little depth of perspective, that is these marks right here. Oop, actually I have something to focus on.
There you go.
There. So we were looking at those marks right there, half millimeter marks. They're little. Okay, what was the other thing? Oh, spalting. Yeah, here. So, other way. Okay, that's kind of cool. So let me show you what this looks like. So here is the spalting I have that is out of focus, of course. There. So this is hard maple. And let's see. Let me get my bearing here so I can show you. Okay, there. So this is maple. This is hard maple right here. And as we move it across, this is the edge of the spalting. Is that the edge of the spalting? No, that's just a growth ring. Or was it? No, no, that was the edge of the spalting. So we're in the middle of the spalting, and here's the next edge of the spalting. So that's actually where fungus has gotten into a ring.
You know, this would be interesting to see, like, greenwood and, like, dried, you know, like, different stages.
To see how the sap soaks in differently.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. Let's see, we got 9 minutes left. What else we got?
Do you have medullary rays and quartersawn oak?
Do I have medullary rays? Yes, I do. I didn't look at that earlier. Ooh, oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, there we go. These are going to be fun. Okay, so let's start with, I'm going to change it up to this one. This is actually wavy or curly white oak, which is just, I have this piece that I've been saving for a while. So it's a thin piece of veneer that I cut, but it's one of my favorites. So this one I got to really go down on.
I have a feeling this is going to turn into a Saturday, like,
let's look at everything in the
live
shop.
video.
Oops, bumped it. There we go.
Science Saturdays. Ooh.
Now you really can't see any difference between this and regular oak at this distance because you can't see any waves. Those are the spring pores. Some really big spring pores. It's kind of interesting to see the sap, how it's all dried in there. It's not something you think about seeing in a hardwood. You'd think about seeing that in a pine or a softwood, but to actually see it in white oak. Okay, and then I've got medullary rays. So let me show you what those look like here and here. So if I hold it right, you can see right here, this white area here, and this ray running out this way. We're going to take a look at those. So medullary ray, we've got to raise this one up. Other way. Okay, there we go. Flip it back on. So let's find a ray to look at. They are, okay, we are looking at a ray. Okay, so we're actually looking at that big medullary ray I pointed out at the beginning. You can see it's very, very homogeneous here. It looks almost like a hardwood, like a maple or something. And this is the, let's see if I can get to the edge of it. No, we're still in the medullary ray, we're still in the medullary ray. Let's see if I can get to the edge. Where is the edge of it?
Are you sure you didn't go past already?
Yeah, right there, that's the edge of it. So this is ray, and then we're back into the regular ring growth of the oak. Now this is quartersawn, so let me actually get over here to the regular quartersawn grain. And so this is in between the rings each year are running across this board. So from there to there is 1 year of growth. And then from there to, oh, we're in a ray. Oh, look at that. That's a ray fleck. And there's the other year. That's just fascinating. And look at all those skin cells. It's like I've been licking this board or something. What's next? Let's see if we can do a sawtooth.
I was going to say, I think they'd be very disappointed if we don't end.
Let me try and
They want to do like rip versus crosscut.
Okay, here is a crosscut that I just sharpened. This is one from that Saturday video. Whoop. Don't catch it in the grinder. So I should be able to get it here. This one's going to be a hard one, as I'm going to look straight down on it first. So I'm going to do a lot of focusing in and out to try and get it. Holy cow, that's tiny. How am I going to show that? I'm going to need smaller teeth. Okay, this is going to take a minute to set up.
All right, well, Peter DeWitt super chatted
Oh, what do you say?
This was an awesome idea for a live, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more videos using the microscope. Thank you. So are you ready, or should I mom joke?
Mom joke.
Okay.
Oh, that is cool.
I've been thinking about it. I've never met a single person who is happily married.
I was waiting for the rest of it. I'm like, wait, no, there is no rest of it.
That was it. I like that
Yeah,
one.
I need smaller teeth. That one's not going to show up. This one is an 8 ppi, and the whole view of it shows a half of a tooth, and I can't quite tell where I am along that tooth. So let me find something that's really fine and sharp. Okay, these are rip cut, and I should be able to get this to work. Except for I'm going to have to do it this way. See if I can get it in that way. Yeah, we can get it in there. Okay. Oh my. This is going to be impossible to find. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. That's easier than expected. Oh! Okay, so we're going to look straight down on the tooth to begin with. So this is the top of a rip cut tooth. And yeah, okay, there's the top, and I'm going to scroll down towards the gullet and the bottom. Oh, too far. There's the gullet in front of the tooth. That's what's not going to show. Let me see if I can get it from the side. That's going to look even better. Give me a moment here. What other ideas do we have? Or
Warren Munn said, I'm going to get banned, but maybe put Sarah under the microscope so she looks real sized. Oh. Just wait, Warren. Just wait.
oh my. Where is it? Oh, I can't adjust it with that anymore. Yeah, I don't know if I'm able to get this in time.
Can you
'cause
lay
this
it
one's going to take
flat?
a while to set up. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's the reason I married her.
Oh, I can't take credit for it. They said that in the chat.
Let me see if I can get it to do that. That was going to be an interesting one to lay down because of the handle. But I think if I set a block of wood on here, I might see if I can
Do you
lift
need me
this
to
up.
hold it?
No, because then the vibrations of your hand would just mess it. It's got to be sitting on something. Yeah, that'll do. That'll get it. Just take me a moment here. Okay, looking at diamond plate, looking at diamond. There it is. Whoa, that came into focus here. I got to show you guys that. So this is what I'm looking at. I got the diamond plate it's sitting on top of. And then as I pull out, we get one tooth. Now these teeth, for perspective, this is a 22 TPI tooth. 22 TPI. Let's see. That's interesting. This is a PAX saw. And it's covered in wood. Huh. That is weird. I want to take a close look at that. Oh, I see what it is. Okay. So what you're looking at, let me get it back in here. What you're looking at is, it looks like there's a weld running on the side of the tooth. That isn't actually a weld. That is that's a burr from when the tooth was punched, because I've never sharpened this saw. So this is a new saw. I've only used it a few times. And what happens is when they punch it, they push the teeth off, and so you get this burr that wraps around. And so they then clean the burr off by stoning it. And so that's what you're actually looking at on that. That's kind of interesting to see that. Huh. I got to put a crosscut under there just to do this. Anything hopping up on there I should see?
What, for those who join us later, what power is the microscope?
Well, the objective on there is a 10 times head. However, because I have it running through a 200 millimeter lens, it ends up being at around 100 power. I do have a more powerful objective I can put on there, but it's amazing the difference. And some of the things I was looking at earlier, that one just blows it out. You can't see anything because you're just looking too small. Right, let me look at my, no, not that one. Trying to find, let's do a Japanese saw. Japanese saw. Let's do a Dazuki. Yeah, Dazuki. Just because I like saying Dazuki. Excuse me. Bless you. Okay, let's see if I can.
I hope that microscope helps you find your dad jokes.
Diamond plate. There's one edge of one tooth. There's the top edge of it. So this is the back edge because it's a crosscut. So there's one tooth, and then we bring it along to the next tooth. And I can bring you down along that tooth. That's interesting because I'm focusing in and out right now to the back. Let go so it's not vibrating. And then we'll pull it forward. So now we're up at the thickness of the plate. So I'm focusing in and out at the thickness of a Dazuki. Here, I'll let you see in reality what we're looking at. So we were looking at the teeth on this out of focus saw. Isn't that cool how out of focus I can get this thing? Come on, focus. There we go. So we were looking at the teeth on that. This is Lido. So yeah, this has been, oop, not that one. Back to this one. This has been a lot of fun.
Whoa, whoa.
But, oh yeah, I guess flipping these back. Let's go back to these. Sarah thought she took her glasses off for a moment. Yeah, so I'm probably going to be doing a few videos showing off some interesting things. I've been experimenting with it and learning some interesting things and seeing how the finish absorbs into the wood and different characteristics. And there's a lot of things like that I want to show. I think showing the sharpening system through that will be kind of an eye-opening thing. And so there's a few other videos like that I really want to show in detail. And I think that that will be very beneficial. And I'd love to hear, what do you think would be beneficial to see on the microscopic level? One of the things that Jeff from Reed Plains, the two of us have been wanting to remake the Japanese video where they're actually showing a plane cutting against the grain. We're trying to set up the rig to make that. That's the whole reason why I bought this microscope. And so that will be a fun one to do, but it's a crazy amount of setup to make that happen. So hopefully we'll make that happen, but we'll see. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. What things do you want to see done? And we're gonna have some fun with it. So we'll probably be back next week with a joint or something of that nature, or maybe I'll just be doing more of this because it is so much fun. There's 1,000 things in the shop. Like, ooh, oh, I should look at some files. Ooh, that'd be cool. Yeah, right, so we've got other things to look at. But I think that'll do it for now. Anything I'm forgetting or anything I should know before we jump off?
No.
No? Okay, cool. So I think until next time, we will see you later. Until then, bye.
Bye. You didn't say have a wonderful day.
What's that?